Do you ever wonder what those paneling tools do in Clip Studio Paint? You will be surprised by how much they can speed up your work. And Rob and I are going to demo 3 of their special powers right now. Hello, welcome to this Lean Into Art mini workshop episode. This is where we explore an art or creative task that and demonstrate how we think about it and work on it. My name is Jerzy Drozd. I'm a cartoonist and teaching artist.
I'm Rob Stenzinger. I'm a user experience designer, a interactive maker, and a teaching artist.
And if you stick with us this episode, we're going to talk about why this matters. Give you an example try. We're going to do a live demonstration, and then maybe even talk about what we love about this stuff. Why celebration at the end of a learning journey is always a good idea, right? At least we think so.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
who is this for, Rob?
Well, this is for folks who are working in Clip Studio Paint, right? So this would be you're making comics and probably mostly comics, but I maybe there's a lot of the comic-like panel masking that would help other illustrations too.
Actually, yeah, I would argue that be the case, and that means there are some barriers to work around. In that, you are going to need a computer and an installation of Clip Studio Paint to follow along. Clip Studio does give a free 3-month trial at clipstudio.net. And then, like I said just a moment ago, we're going to highlight 3 ways the paneling tools make the work go faster, easier. Before we jump in, we're going to thank some people who make this show possible. And who am I talking about? Why, I am talking about, if I can find my, there we go, which is no longer working. Why is this not working?
We could use the theater of the mind to talk about the folks who support us on Patreon.
Okay, let's do that. Because we're going to talk about patreon.com/leanintoart. What is it? It is a way for you to give us a monthly upvote. If you believe in the work we're doing, if the stuff we do helps you, you can support the show by going to patreon.com/leanintoart. And I want to thank 5 people who've been doing exactly that. Spencer Hallam. Thank you, Spencer. It means a lot to us. Becca Hilburn. You can find Becca on Twitter at NattoSoup. On all social media as NattoSoup, as a matter of fact. Good branding, Becca. Ashley Knapp. Thank you, Ashley. Longtime supporter of the show. It means a lot to us. Chris Watkins. Thank you, Chris. And Jodels Pox, who you can find on Twitter at JBombArtist. You can join them all at patreon.com/leanintoart. And it also will get you access to the Lean Into Art Discord server, where you can have time-shifted conversations with fellow leaners. The Discord server is actually public. You can join it at leanintoart.com/discord. But if you support us on Patreon, you get access to the Patreon-only section, where there's some really cool channels for leveling up your work and socializing with fellow leaners. So once again, patreon.com/leanintoart. Thanks so much. Mm-hmm. All right. Are we ready to demonstrate the skill?
Yeah. What will we demonstrate? Oh, my gosh.
I know. And then this part's important. Yeah. You got to underscore it with a yeah. Okay. So, all right, let's dig into the procedure. These tools that we said we were going to show off. So, I'm going to switch to here we are. And Rob, you are invited to play along as well, of course. So,
wonderful.
For this demo, and as a matter of fact, let me switch to the setup with you at the second screen. There we go. Cool. Okay, so first step is just load up Clip Studio Paint and make a new document. So you can just make a new document, go to File, New, and there's a bunch of different options to try here, whether you want to make like an illustration or a webtoon or a comic or show all comic settings. I turn off comic settings just for this demo because that, if you click on that setting, that gives you a whole bunch of options for margins. We're not really going to mess around with that today just because we really want to stay focused on just the paneling tools or frame tools. They call it frame tools. I'm going to keep saying panels because that's what I've always called them, and I'm just stuck with that language. The language they've chosen for their application is frames. Same thing, the little boxes, the units of storytelling that make up a page of comics. How do I find the frame tool, Mr. Drozd? Well, if you hit the U key on your keyboard, that'll get you into the area where you can find the bevy of different tools in there, whether you have your straight line, your frame, your ruler, saturated lines. The subtools section is called figure. So if you hit the U key, it'll get you there. And you want to look for the one that's called frame in that top area of the subtool menu. And you'll see there's a whole bunch of different tools in there. Let's take a quick tour around it. You got rectangle frames, rounded frames, polyline frames. I've made some custom ones here that if we have time we can dig into, or we might save it for another day. But there's even like frame border pens, so you can draw your panels freehand if you need to. And then there's something we're going to dig into is the divide frame folder and divide frame border tools. So, but for now, let's stick with the rectangle frame just for the purposes of the demonstration. Okay, we're not going to mess around with the other ones right now.
No, worth noting, I don't have the circular frame tool.
I think that's a custom one that I made. Interesting. Okay.
Yep.
So, and how do you make custom ones? Well, you can actually probably intuit how you do it when you look down. You can intuit how you do it. You go down to the tool property menu underneath your subtool menu. And when you click on any one of these tools, these options change underneath. There's let's see, you could draw the border. How to add is another field under there. You can choose to either create a new folder or add to selected folder, because when we make a frame, it's going to make a folder too. We'll get into that. Whether you want to have it start off with a raster layer inside of the frame folder, fill inside the frame. I'll fill it with a color. And then we have even like aspect type, which let me toggle that open. We can actually set our frames or panels to be created with a certain aspect ratio. So you could say I want it to always be this ratio, like 3 to 4. 3 inches by 4 inches, or 3 to 4 in terms of like 16:9 is like letterbox aspect ratio for most televisions now, right? You could set it. You could set that so that it won't let you draw it in any other format, which might be useful if you're doing something like a comic strip or something. Brush size, that's going to be the width of the panel border. And then anti-aliasing, you can set the aliasing to be, more or less fuzzy or crisp. And then we get down to the bottom. There's brush shape. We can actually make. There's a bunch of different kinds of brushes in here that will draw your panel border for you. So you can have like a dotted line panel. You can have like a jagged panel. You could have zigzags and other patterns. But let's just stick with the one that's preloaded on there. So, any questions so far, Rob?
No, it's making sense though. I am tempted to make panels made of hearts. So.
Well, if you want, sometimes when your feelings are so big, they seem like they're bigger than your body, and that's when you want to put them in the background or make the panel border that feeling, right? That's shoujo manga, man. All right, so let's draw a full-page panel with the rectangle frame tool. Now, I'm going to stay inside of the document to demonstrate what the panel is. I would recommend you don't draw all the way to the edge of your document, because you will be missing out on what the frame border can do. So start somewhere like a 1/4 inch on the inside of your document and just drag to the bottom right, and boom. You see in your layer palette, oh, my demo is not working. We'll have to stick with yours, Rob, because my demo, my OBS is not broadcasting to the. Let me switch this to network and see if it updates. I'll switch to you for now. I'm going to guide you through it, Rob.
Oh boy, this is going to be a bumpy flight.
I'll try to switch back to mine in a little bit and see if like my NDI sources are working. Okay. So now that you've drawn your panel border, it should have created a raster layer in your layer palette. You should see that there's a panel, a folder in your layer palette that looks like a bunch of panels on a page. That's its like preview icon, and underneath it is a raster layer, right?
Yes.
So if you grab your pen tool, just start drawing on that layer and draw right over the edge of the panel border. So make sure you select the raster layer, not the panel.
Select the raster layer. Yep. So I was actually playing. I know I could actually do zooming on my screen too, but I'm just gonna.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like built into Windows, and I'm trying to be fancy. So sorry if I was ignoring you for a second there. All right, so I'm in the raster. All right, got the raster layer.
And now just grab a pen, like any pen from that you normally use to draw with in Clip Studio Paint, and just start scribbling around on the screen, and go make sure that you go over the edge of the panel border.
Okay, you know what? It helps to not draw with white on white.
That's a good tip. So you'll see that there's like a purple area around the panel border. That's a mask. It's automatically masking out anything that you draw over top of that border. If Rob were to move that raster layer above the panel folder now, where that character's head would, the backside of his head would actually be visible. So when Rob moves it up, see, that drawing is there. It's obscured by the mask that exists around the panel border. So already it's like you don't have to worry about slowing down when you get to the edge of the border, right? So now let's talk about dividing up the big panel. So we're going to introduce you to the divide frames tool. I'm going to switch back to my Clip Studio. So hooray, we got the NDI plugin working again. Okay, so if I turn this, yes, we are drawing again. So just like I was showing you with Rob, if I draw on my raster layer, I can draw right up to the edge, and it just vanishes the line, even though the line is still there. So now let's introduce us to the divide frame folder and divide frame border tools. Now these ones are really cool. So divide frame folder, remember I said when we made this panel, it made it into a layer folder, right? A grouping of layers, which I can toggle closed and open again with that little arrow next to the frame 1 that we just created. But if I take the divide frame folder tool, it's literally just drawing a line across the screen, which you can see right now as I'm drawing it. And when I let go and finish, it divides that big panel into two smaller panels, but it also creates two layer folders. So now we have a frame 2 folder, we have a frame 1 folder, right? And it also duplicates the raster layer that was underneath it. So
it's duplicated. That's why it's appearing in both. Okay.
No, it chopped it. It chopped it. Oh. Yeah. Oh no, it didn't. It did duplicate it. It duplicated it, and it masks out what's just like it masks out the sides, like when I was drawing. But it looks like when it made the duplication, it also cut the drawing where the mask cut the original drawing. Okay, that's interesting. I usually do my framing, my panel dividing before I do any drawings within, if that makes sense. I do all the paneling.
Makes sense. Don't want to get that destructive edit to cause problems.
So, okay, so that's the divide frame folder tool. It creates multiple panels, and you can create as many as you want. You just keep dragging it. You can set it to have a certain lock at a certain angle. So like if you go into the wrench tool in your subtool menu, you can set the step of angle to be 45 degrees or less or more, so that it will it automatically, you see how it kind of clicks when it's perfectly straight, 45 degree angle, 90 degrees. It automatically clicks for you to make sure that you're doing like parallel and perpendicular lines when you're laying out your page, but you can do them literally at any angle. The other thing to look at in your subtool menu is when you have divide frame folder or border, doesn't matter which, selected, you can choose the shape of the division. In other words, mine is set right now to divide by straight line. Yours is probably 2. But I can change it to polyline or spline. What does that mean? Well, I'm going to undo a couple times. And let's say I want to create a really unusual shape for a panel border.
Oh, wow.
So you can create a polyline panel border where it will create a gutter between your two panels that is determined by clicks that you make on the screen, right? Spline is a curve. So when I tap, it's going to curve following the taps that I put on the screen. And double tap to finish. So you can create like very unusual shapes for your panel borders, like pretty intuitively. So you showed us divide frame folder. What does border do? It's the same idea, except that instead of creating a new layer, it just cuts that gutter into the mask in your layer folder. So you see it didn't create any new layers. It just you see the mask icon alter every time I cut a new line in. And it works the same way where I can choose a spline if my pen will work. And I can do curves and cut the page up any way I want. And on layer 2, my raster layer underneath it, it's all one layer, but so I have to be careful of my gutters now a little bit more. It's not going to I can't draw indiscriminately and say panel 3 here and not worry about it crossing over into panel 2. Whereas if I were to use the divide frame folder tool, I'll show you the difference. Undo a few more times. So I'll go back to divide frame folder, drag across. Now, when I'm drawing on layer 2 that was created, I don't have to worry about, I can draw right down all the way to the bottom of the page, and it's masking that out from panel 1. And I can draw on panel 1 and have it reach up into panel 2. You won't see that art. But if you use...
Yeah, I mean, that's the difference between them being a shared drawing versus independent per panel.
Thank you. That's very well said. That's exactly right. So is this making sense so far, the dividing tools?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is interesting. I'm starting to realize different settings I would like to adjust, but this is great. I'm learning.
So when you use the divide frame border tool or folder, so let's drag, and you'll see that it creates a. Whoops, I have it set to spline. Turn off. Don't do that anymore. Go back to the line. I'm going to do a couple times. You're going to notice that down in the tool property menu, you have the option to change the vertical gutter width and the horizontal gutter width. I have mine set the same. It's set to 50. But you can change that size to match what you need for your comic style. So let's see. How are we doing on time? I want to make sure I cover everything. Oh, so this is pretty intuitive, like just dragging and cutting your panel, your gutters into the page very easily with just your pen tool or your mouse. But supposing you want to make a Steve Ditko style 9-panel grid, or maybe you've got like a wide panel on the top, and then maybe you've got like a very narrow panel on the left, and then you want to stack 3 panels on the right, which people say you're not supposed to do. That's why I'll do this. It's transgressive. People be like, no, you can't do that, Jerzy. Well,
you're not the comics boss of me.
Yeah. Well, hopefully this will make the learning happen a little bit more clearly, right? Because it's like, oh, he's doing something he shouldn't do. So let's say I want to stack 3 panels, but I want it to be exactly the same width. Well, I could use like the ruler on the side of the screen to get there, but there's actually a way to do this that is like mathematically, precise, and it doesn't require you like eyeballing anything. So if you go to your menu, you go to Layer and Ruler Frame. It's buried deep in here, everybody. And then Divide Frame Border Equally. Okay? I made this a shortcut in my quick access settings because it's just like I use it so often. So before you do that, though, make sure the way we interact with our panels after we've cut them, like if we want to make any adjustments to them, we have to go up to our... Come on, I'm hovering over you. I want to get your name. It's the operation tool. And that's the O. If you hit the letter O, you get to it. And inside the operation subtool menu is your object selector. And if you go down to tool property menu, you can see all the different things you can change is like what it actually interacts with. If you go to selectable object, you can have it interact with raster layers, vector layers, image material. I reduced the amount of things mine can interact with, but I made sure that it can interact with rulers and frame borders. And then if you go down, if you look in the tool property menu in your operation tool, you can choose whether or not it snaps to other frame borders. What does that mean? So if I click on this panel up top, and you see how it's created a bounding box around it, and we can see all these different handles I can grab, right? I can grab the outside handles to change its size or rotate it. I can also grab this blue dot in the center of the panel line. If I can move it down, and if I move it down, it automatically squeezes down the other panels too.
Oh, nice.
I can change the angle. If I grab like the left corner, the red anchor point in the left corner, and I move it up to make this panel diagonal, it automatically adjusts the rest of the page to interact with it. And it keeps my gutters the same width. So even after you've cut your panels with the frame divide tool, you can still make alterations to it. But if I turn off snap to other frame borders and I move the panel around, why is it doing it? Oh, I'm sorry. It's under keep gutters aligned. That's right underneath snap to frame borders. Keep gutters aligned, set that to none. And now I can move the panel around and it will not alter the gutters to adjust. So it's under keep gutters aligned, horizontal and adjacent. So I can move the entire gutter back and forth on these panels, okay? So that's what you get to do with the object tool. So it's O in your menu, okay? So, but then going back to the thought experiment of the transgressive thing of making the panel on the right stacked vertically and the exact same height. So three equal panels, right? So let me move this up. I'm going to make sure that I use my operator tool to only select that big panel on the bottom right. I'm going to click with my operator tool on that panel, and you can see that the other two panels are not selected. Okay? And then we go back to Layer, Ruler Frame, Divide Frame Border Equally, and this menu pops up. We have the option to choose vertical divisions and horizontal divisions, or both, right? So we could choose, and then we change the number of divisions here, right? So we hit up and down on this to increase the number of vertical and horizontal divisions of the panel border. I toggle the vertical one off, and now it's only letting me choose the number of horizontal divisions. And so now I can say, let's make it, well, actually I want to do it vertical. So go back to vertical, I'll turn off horizontal.
That's not intuitive. I just had that surprising, like,
yeah.
Hey, wait a minute. What do you?
Yeah, vertical divisions means that you're cutting down, or rather each division happens like ladder rungs. You're going up and down a ladder vertically. Horizontal divisions would be like you turn the ladder sideways, and then you're climbing sideways on the ladder, each rung being the gutter. You're right. That is not entirely intuitive.
I think division, it's like you're interrupting that. So are you interrupting vertically? Or are you interrupting horizontally? But
there we go.
Still not intuitive.
I'm so glad you're here, Rob, to like provide clear language to what I'm trying to describe. We should do workshops together, like what we're doing right now. So underneath those options is the option to divide the folder. So you can either like create a new folder, or you can create empty folder or do not change. I'm just choosing do not change. And then when I hit OK, so I've got it set to 3 vertical divisions, hit OK, boom. It uses my gutter width settings from my frame divide tool and automatically chops that big panel into 3 equidistant or equal sized panels. That's a pretty handy tool to have for when you're laying out a page.
Mm-hmm. And I can see why. So you added that to your quick access.
Yeah, I did.
So, right.
Yep. So like, yeah,
Which
I just
quick access floats anything buried in the menus up into a easy list of instant panel buttons.
Yeah, let me see if it's the letter Q that gets us to quick access. It should be. No, that launches quick mask. All right. Okay, so what do we got next? So let's say let's say we got the layout the way we want it. And all our panel borders are laid out right, but we want to like do a little bit of tweaking to it. There's more tools that we could use to interact with the panel borders. And that is down in our correct line tools, which you can find by hitting the Y key on your keyboard. And I'll take you down to this group of tools called correct line. And nested in here are a bunch of different options. There's pinch vector line, there's you change the control point, simplify vector line, connect vector line, correct line width. The ones I want to play with right now, though, are redraw vector line and redraw vector line width. The two on my screen that are on the bottom. It might be different on yours because Clip Studio has, it's a very, you can really play with the interface on these things on this app, for better or worse. So now what are we going to do with that? So while I've got my panel border selected, I'm going to go to redraw vector line. Let's suppose that we're happy about how easily this app does for like cutting our panel borders and laying out a page, but man, it just looks like a machine did it now, and it doesn't look like it has a personal touch. Down in the tool property tool property menu for redraw vector line, we can set a certain amount of stabilization, just like you can with like drawing. With your drawing tools, you can set stabilization where the computer will assist you in like smoothing out your lines. You can set it down to 0, or I'll set mine up to like say 21. Let's go 25. And now I'm going to hover my pen over top of the panel border. I'm just going to start drawing, following the line. And maybe it's hard to see on your screen, so I'll do a little bit more of a drastic version. But you're literally redrawing the line of the panel with this vector tool. So you could, and I've done this before, run your pen over top of the lines to give it a little bit more of an analog look a little less perfect. See that?
I do. I'm just like, Clip Studio is mind-blowing.
And you can redraw it as many times as you want. And then you can also redraw the line width. So let's say you want there to be like a little bit of variation in the line, a little bit of stagger. So again, going down to your tool property menu, you've got the option to change the brush size. So as I mess around with my screen, you can see my brush size is getting huge or tiny. I'll make it just a little bit bigger than the panel border line. And now with pressure, the harder I press, the thicker the line gets. The less I press, the thinner the line gets. So you can create a little bit of like intuitive wobble in your brush stroke to make this feel much more analog and not quite so mechanical and precise. And it's just with the pen pressure. Now, again, this is something where if you have to use a tablet of some kind, either a tablet where you're drawing on the screen or a Wacom tablet that you plug in and use as a pressure-sensitive input. It's not going to work as well with a mouse. As a matter of fact, I don't have a mouse hooked up to even try. So,
let's see. I guess I do. Let's see what happens. Just full pressure. Boom.
Okay. Yeah. So that's gonna. So
all the pressure.
Which could be something that you want to do in because like the panel thickness or the border thickness actually is, that's a form of storytelling. Lines are visual poetry. They express how things feel. They describe objects and they express how things feel. So that's why we mess around panel borders. We're not done messing with panel borders yet. And now I'll switch back and pray. And pray that my NDI plugin is still working. Okay. Yeah. So going back to our operator tool, which you can find by hitting the letter O, and we can see now my panel borders, and the ones you've messed with now have a plethora of vector points that you've created. Like when you started freehanding over top, it's creating points for all those directional movements that you made. So that's the first thing you'll notice. The second thing, whereas like my last panel that I didn't mess with at all, is just 4 vector points connected to each other to form a box, right? So the last thing I want to mess with is if we go operator tool selected, remember those options that we talked about in the tool property menu. The bottom one is brush shape. And now if I go to and choose like say spray for my brush shape, you can see how, let me click off of the panel border so we're not seeing the vector points anymore. You can see how it's created even like a little bit of a texture to the panel borders. You can change the brush after the fact, after you've done all these edits of changing the width, changing the shape. And I can go back. If I don't like it, let's click on all the panel borders and then go back to my operator tool property menu, go to the bottom option, brush shape, and choose just pen, and we'll set it all back to the way it was. So these are non-destructive edits in a way. I mean, it's destructive edits when you change the shape, unless you want to hit undo. But like as far as the line is concerned, you can keep on, indefinitely messing with it, or rather the brush shape, I should say. So
This is wild. I mean, what a powerful tool. It's like it rewards you solving problems discreetly, and then you can continue to iterate on how you solve that problem. It's like you laid out your page, and now we still let you change it and refine. That's wild.
Yeah, that is. It's a rabbit hole you can go down too. There's certainly been times where, I've caught myself over editing because the opportunity was there. So I do try to I try to set a time limit on my work in order to prevent me from doing that. But just the fact that now I didn't have to break out a ruler, I didn't have to carefully take a pen alongside of a ruler to draw these lines, and even more so, I can mess with them after the fact, change how they look in a way that doesn't destroy any of the art underneath, is a pretty exciting thing. I think that the frame tools in Clip Studio Paint are like one of the real selling points for me as a cartoonist. So, any thoughts, questions, or wonderings on this, or should we take a break?
I think I've shared along the way. I'm just reacting to it's almost knowing these tools exist and then having some way to manage how you deal with their existence. It seems pretty healthy, like setting a timer or whatnot, because yeah, you can edit, to maybe it's, to an infinite trap, but setting constraints will help. But I find overall I'm comforted that this exists and it's an option to be able to do some flexible, non-destructive edits. There's a separate mask from what's behind, and so the art and the frame are independently managed and whatnot. And that's pretty powerful on its own. But then, the settings, I really appreciate this tour. So I just had that as a reaction as opposed to like other questions. Cool.
Thanks. I'm glad that this was useful. And if anybody else thinks it was useful, there's a way you can support the show. So let me get my ad spot up. And yes, there it is. So I'm gonna try to get my Edge working again, so we can take a quick little break. And there it is. If you find this topic, these mini workshops useful, a great way to support us and help make this more sustainable is to interact with the other products that we make. And the thing that I make that I hope you'll check out is the 4 Million Years Later podcast. It's another free thing I make, but we have products that we sell in our TeePublic store there if you really enjoy it. But what is the 4 Million Years Later podcast? So it answers a question. It's a weekly answer to a question. Does creativity thrive in freedom or in constraints? This is a story analysis podcast wherein the subject of study is the 1980s Transformers cartoon. We watch an episode a week and dig deep to explore the story's structure and meaning, infer the writer's intentions, and synthesize these thoughts within the context of the conflicting needs of a daily television show explicitly designed to advertise toys. You can find it in podcatchers everywhere, and you can also find it at the 4millionyearslater.com is where you can find the podcast site to subscribe there as well. Let's hear from you, Rob. What do you've got?
I have a workshop called Customizing Your Next Creative Challenge. Every month, creative communities come up with neat events to celebrate their different disciplines, whether it's drawing or comics, writing, video games, or even teaching artists. Well, I bet you've been tempted and have tried creative challenges and may have some mixed feelings, some good, some mixed bag. Well, make the next one you choose work well for you. They're supposed to be fun, right? They're supposed to be productive too, if that's what you want. Well, get my Customizing Your Next Creative Challenge workshop and craft the right output and experience you're working for your creative challenge recipe. Stream the workshop on Skillshare or purchase your own downloadable copy at gum.co/CYNCC. Also there, you can buy the workshop as a 1-hour virtual workshop upgrade. I'll facilitate the Customize Your Next Creative Challenge for you live. And that's also available at gum.co/CYNCC.
So is that one-on-one facilitation? Is that what you're talking about there, Rob?
Yes,
Oh my
that's
goodness.
right.
Oh my goodness. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's experiencing what we're doing together right now, me and you working together on this workshop, but it's with customizing someone else's creative challenge, finding what they want. We did a demo of this recently on the Lena Twart cast, and it was revelatory for me to go through that experience and find out how to name what I find fun in an explicit way, then round back and say, how can I apply that to my creative challenges? That was great.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and a great test of the product. So that's so right. Anyone can sign up and enjoy that experience firsthand by going to gum.co/CYNCC.
Okay, so and then the last thing we'd point you toward is the Lena Twart Discord, which we mentioned earlier, lenatwart.com/Discord, where you can talk with us in a time-shifted manner. So, okay, I think I want to play one last piece of music just to get us to the final thought of this episode. We used to put this at the top.
Why did you put this at the end?
You can't do it now. Oh, because now we're all amped up again. So yeah, like we said we are going to also celebrate the learning, give people a chance to interact with this with themselves. So how can the public, like if you watching along, like I want to try this, how do I get started? I would say, take a picture of some penciled art or scan some penciled art and just import it into Clip Studio Paint. Open it up in Clip Studio Paint to start with. Just open the file and then draw your panel border right over top of that, right? Start with the big frame of the entire page and see if you can start cutting some of those gutters that you defined in your penciled art and see what changes you make there, right?
What an awesome idea. That seems super useful. I've never even thought of that. Like, I mean, honestly, or do your own cover band version of any comics page. Obviously, don't publish it and, pretend to have made a thing you didn't make, but study from other artists. That's what is normal. Copyright law, mixed bag. But,
yes.
yeah, copy from what other artists, like the strategies they did and using those tools. And all of a sudden it's like double learning.
Yeah. So yeah, or just make a new document and just start like what we did today. Just start with a blank document and start drawing the boxes and trying to cut them, and play around with those vector line tools. So what would be an ideal scenario? What would be really nice to have would be a screen you could draw on. It tends to feel better drawing on a screen, but if you can't, all you really need is Clip Studio Paint and a computer or tablet that can run it. Good news is Clip Studio now works on mobile. I think almost all mobile devices now, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, it used to be exclusive to Samsung only on Android. Now the gates are wide open. You can get it in the Google Play Store as well. So yeah, I mean, it's all over on Android. It's all over on iOS. It's right. Mac and PC. It's pretty available. In Linux, I'm not sure if it runs under Wine or one of the other.
I don't know. It's not free, but it's not. I don't think it's prohibitively expensive. It depends on your mileage may vary as whether or not a $10 monthly fee is worth it to you or a $40 one-time payment for a desktop version. They run sales all the time though. So
I think if you go with the inexpensive mobile version or tablet, it's less than $10 a month. Okay. I think that's the fanciest option. I think you can go as low as, I don't know, I forget, but there's a cheaper option.
But it's important to state that it's not free. It's not as expensive as Adobe products, but it's not free. So that's important too.
Yep. And they are not a sponsor.
They are not a sponsor. I just use this app a lot. So we're going to celebrate too. So one thing we get out of this is being able to be more flexible in how we can actually accomplish what we want to accomplish. Knowing what our options are is always good. I would say that this speeds up what I consider to be a tedious task, although some people might not find ruling their boards a tedious task. Some people might find it meditative, right? Any other things that we can infer that we would gain out of knowing how to use these tools?
I think the gain is in your process. Like you can just make a comic page by drawing on a piece of paper, and if you want to turn it digital, then you can take a picture of it and scan it or what have you. But this lets you really take on harder work by lowering risk in a way.
Mm.
It's like saying instead of one drawing and you're all in, you get to turn that into smaller bets on the page.
That's good. Yeah. And it also introduces you to the vector tools, which come in handy in a lot of different places in Clip Studio Paint. This isn't the only application of the correct line tools. As a matter of fact, you wind up using them a lot in the lettering tools. And as we explored in a recent mini workshop episode where we talked about flatting, those tools actually came into play in flatting comics as well.
That's a relief because it is a lot of tools to learn, right? And so it's neat that it's rewarding that, hey, they have applicability in different contexts.
So let's go back to summarize for everybody, for like a quick review of what we just did, is that your figure tools are under the letter U. You tap the letter U, and that's where you can find the subset of tools where the figure tools are nested. And that's where you get to your frame and panel tools, or framing tools, as they call it in Clip Studio. And you make a panel with the rectangle tool or any of the others. It's up to you. And then you break out the divide frame folder or divide frame border tools. That's in the subtool menu when you hit the letter U. And you can divide the frame panels equally by going to Layer, Ruler, /frame, divide frame border equally. Right? I highly recommend you make that a shortcut if you can. You'll be happy you did, because that's a lot of menus to get through to do that. And then you get to the correct line tools, those vector tools. That's with the letter Y, and that's how you change the lines on the panels. And then your operation tool under O is how you select specific panels and make changes to how gutters interact. So there's your handy. You can do a quick screen cap of this, so you can put it in your notes so for when you're trying it for yourself.
That's a really helpful review. Awesome. It doesn't seem so, I don't know, such a deeper, challenging thing to learn, both with your demo and then the reminder of those shortcuts. Get right back to it.
Super. Yeah. I thought so that I just know that when I watch like how-to videos, I'm scrubbing back and forth all the time going like, what did they just say? What did they just say? I put it in a list. There we go. You had a reference list. It's on an index card now. So now you can jump in and give it a try. So, okay. So any ways that this could go wrong? Any roadblocks? Any like scenarios we can imagine where this might be a problem messing around with these tools?
I think you hinted at what I think is the biggest one. I mean, not just a hint, just to get lost in fretting and noodling and puttering with because yay, there's lots of tools, but also what does this one do? What if I do this? And just get caught in a feedback loop of what if and putter.
Yeah, I think that's right. And so I do try to be very mindful of that. And I try to set time limits on what I'm doing. I've been doing twice weekly live streams where I really say like, I intend to accomplish this much in 60 minutes. And I try to stick to that. And so you'll hear me a lot live stream going like, how am I doing on time? I'm always looking over at the clock. I want to make sure I'm finishing when I said I was going to finish. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But I have that in my mind while I'm working so that I don't get lost down those rabbit holes of messing with things indefinitely. Anything else? Any other reflections and wonderings?
Let's see. I think I love the practice idea of taking a picture of a comics page and using that as an approach. So you're not starting out with the trap of the blank page. You don't have to go solve all kinds of problems. You don't have to go write a story first. You can learn the tool separately and get familiar, shake out, pick up a new capability, and all right.
Something I would like to turn into a slogan on the show is like, be kind to yourself when you're learning new things, right? And give yourself a break. Try not to learn too many things at once. It's okay to learn just this one thing, because that's going to unlock a cascading effect of other things that you're going to be able to understand and see how they all work together. So, yeah. So, what? Well, you smile like that.
I just an old memory of my first learning experience for Clip Studio Paint back in the day when it was called Manga Studio was I chose from not ever using it to just jump into 24-hour comic day. Pretty much. I might have opened it and dabbled a little bit, but like, yeah. You know what? You can look at something and say, that's one tool, but actually it's not. It's lots of tools. So if you find out, hey, wait, there's more tools than I thought. Okay, good time to remember to be gentle and not, act on that old assumption.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I think we did another one, Rob. So thank you for playing along, and thanks for all of your clarification that you made to my excited jumbled language. And, please consider liking this video if you found it useful. And we record these mini workshops every other week and post them at linatart.com, patreon.com/linatart. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time, I've been Jerzy Droz of linatart.com and Jerzy Droz on Instagram.
And I'm Rob Stenzinger, also of leanintowart.com, and you can find me places like Instagram as Rob Stenzinger.
Okay, bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintowart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening.